You're listening to Zoom the TBT with Charge and Hayner.
This is Zoom, the TBT of Charge and Hayner. We're continuing our absolute spree of regional previews as it becomes. We're on the eve. We are less than 48 hours from TBT starting. And we're recording our Syracuse regional preview there, second weekend regional preview. And we have the head coach and GM of the Nerd Team, Matt Goldsmith here. Matt, how you doing tonight?
I'm good. Excited to be here. Thanks for having us. Excited.
And immediately, as soon as he shows the shirt, his internet goes out. That's the joy of the internet. Hopefully it comes back on.
That's usually Hayner.
I know, it's usually me, but obviously, well, we're both in the Northeast, so we're going to wait for Matt to come back and just goof on the fact he is holding up his nerd shirt right now. While we wait for Matt's internet to come back, which I'm sure it will, let's start Oh, Matt, you there?
I'm good, yeah.
That's pretty funny.
Your picture's froze, but we got you. So
we can hear you. We're going to go from there. Oh, there we go. Now we got Matt back. Now we got Matt back. We're starting with technical difficulties. A perfect way to start. So first of all, Matt, where are you coaching right now? Let everybody know what school you're at right now.
Yeah, so I'm the head coach. Been the head coach at the College of New Jersey for 8 seasons. Division III school in Central Jersey. And obviously our co-GM, co-coach is Aaron Toomey, who actually just got the head job at the University of Hartford, who just went down to D3 as well.
The Hartford story is really interesting because I was talking to a friend about this. They had moved up to D1, and despite doing pretty well, they forcibly moved down to D3, which is a really strange situation. Does he see that as a particularly challenging position to take?
I think he's excited about it. You know, obviously it comes with challenges with, the move down and the way the alumni feel about it. But it's a great spot, and I think he's going to do really well there.
Yeah, actually, I had a contract job up in Hartford for a thing. I was actually helping redesign a hotel up there. And the best thing I found about Hartford was leaving it. Anyway, so yeah, Hartford's in place. They don't even have the Whalers anymore. Now, Charles, let's scrub this list. So before we get into this whole thing, do you want to talk to people about the left side of this bracket, Charge?
Yeah, I'll take the left side. So obviously, Blue Collar U's been nothing but almost perfect since they started playing in this TBT. Obviously, the defending champions powerhouse. So obviously, you already have just a star-studded lineup with Blue Collar U being involved there. And shocking to everybody, Big Five won a game last year. Solid group of professionals. Gets the 8th seed and gets Blue Collar U. So we'll talk about that as we hit the slides a little bit more. But this one's going to be a really intriguing matchup, the Rhodey Way and Commonwealth. So that's, 2 first-year alumni teams, both very talented teams. And, And I know you know a little something about Rhode Island, don't you, Hayner?
It's not an island. It drives me absolutely nuts. It's not a fucking island. It just kills me every time.
It's never going to get old.
Yeah, it's funny. I hear one thing in my mind, it just stays in there.
Oh, God. Do the right side, man.
Okay. Well, you skipped the Commonwealth, by the way, which is also a.
No, I said.
I was just so mad about the fact Rhode Island's not on. Okay. Obviously, our guest tonight is the head coach and GM of the Nerd Team, fresh off a big upset last year of the host team, Syracuse's alum, the Bayham's Army. They might be having a rematch against first-time alumni team, the 6th seed, the Happy Valley Hoopers, the Penn State alumni. They're fresh off a deep NCAA run. They're kind of a sleeping giant. Never really that great at basketball, but have made some good runs. And John Harder's got a pretty good squad there. Bayheim's Army is a 2 seed, probably a 1 seed quality, but you can't take the 1 seed away from the defending champ, Blue Collar U. And as always, Bayheim's Army is loaded with orange and non-orange alike. And Team Gibson, a new team based on the fellowship of Taj Gibson, a lunch pail quality, longtime NBA player. So first of all, Matt, looking at this bracket, this is just a hellscape of teams, isn't it?
Yeah, I think Syracuse is probably one of the tougher brackets in the entire tournament. It's the toughest I've seen since we've been doing this for 3 years. Bayham's Army is absolutely stacked. Blue Collar U, obviously, have lost once in 2 years. And then there's plenty of other really good teams. Like you were saying, Big Five, Blue Collar U, that's got to be the worst 1-8 matchup for a 1 seed. in a long time. So it's going to be tough to get out of this bracket for sure.
Now, also, you were there last year, and you had the honor of knocking Boeheim's Army off. Can you talk a little bit about the atmosphere of playing in Syracuse against Syracuse alumni fans? Like, how charged and how electric was that atmosphere?
Yeah, it was incredible. I mean, Coach Boeheim was in the front row, yelling at us, yelling at the refs. It was fantastic. We came out of the gates that night really hot, hit a bunch of threes early, and kind of got a big lead and kind of coasted that through the end. But the atmosphere was insane. It felt like we were the most hated people in Syracuse for a good 48 hours there after the game. I mean, like, if anyone saw us, we wouldn't even be wearing gear, anything. We were getting yelled at across the street. It was crazy, but incredible atmosphere. Excited to get back up there, and if all breaks the right way and we can match up with them in the second round, I think it's going to be pretty epic. The fans will have a lot to say, I'm sure.
Yeah, revenge will be served. Now, also the thing is, Jim Boeheim just retired after an illustrious career. He has more time on his hands. You think he might just be screaming even more because he might be coaching from the sideline a little bit of what am I going to do with my time? Maybe I just screw up the nerd team. Is it going to make them a little bit better this year, you think, having that kind of voice on the sideline?
Listen, the itch will always be there for him, I'm sure. So I bet he'll be as jacked up as he's ever been for the TBT this year after retiring.
I mean, it's crazy. He's such a great coach. And he looks a little bit like Larry David. I always find the whole thing really, really amusing. But it is what it is. Let's get into these matchups. Let's start this 1-8. And I think we were talking about this, the Big Five very well. We'll get to them in a minute. But it might be the best 8 seed in the entire tournament with due respect to the North. And we are D3 are also quality 8 seeds. But, I mean, facing the defending champs in the first round, what a nightmare. Now, the defending champs, we call you 10-1. A tri-headed monster at the top with Nick Perkins, Wes Clark, and Massenberg. You got a passer, a scorer, and a big man. Everybody can play. They literally bring hard hats to the stadium. They literally wear them as part of their shtick. Again, 10-1. You guys had to play them after you did their dirty work by knocking off the whole team. Let's just start with the first thing. Nick Perkins. How hard of a cover is he due to just being a massive human being?
Yeah, he's a big boy. I mean, last year he started making threes during the regional, and that was a real big issue. If he's knocking down threes, it's going to be a tough cover for anybody in the tournament, just because of how big and how strong he is. Our team is 2-2 all time in the TBT, and our 2 losses are both versus Blue Collar U. And big Nick Perkins here.
Third time's a charm.
Vinny mentioned that same thing last night about Nick Perkins, and he's same thing. If he starts hitting his threes early and gets hot, you might as well pack it up and go home. He's just that impactful. But these guys 10-1 is just so impressive, and it goes a lot deeper than those big 3 that we talked about. I think kind of mastered the role player mentality and the guys who they can bring in. Defensively, the blue collar, that mentality coming from Western New York, and obviously playing for a cause after that tragedy up there last year. So they had everything going right for them. So, opposite side of the bracket, but what are the things that you think a team would need to do? So what's Big Five need to do to take out blue collar?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that blue collar brings is like a physicality to the game. So right from the jump, you got to meet their physicality, and Perkins starts with it, but Wes Clark is an animal. I mean, he is one of the most physically imposing guards I've ever seen, and he knows it. So that's the biggest thing is, like, do you have the horses to meet their physicality? And if so, you better come right away from the tip, because if you don't, you're going to be in for a long night.
You must have read my mind, because my literal next question was going to ask you if Wes Clark is the toughest small guard in the world. Because he's like a very diminutive guy. He's actually shorter than me, but like he plays a foot bigger than that. So he's a complete nightmare. He hits shots. I mean, the man put up 10 a game in a high league, but I mean, he is a guy that is built like a fire hydrant. Like, he's such a tough little guy. And I don't think is there a team in this tournament who maybe isn't as talented, but like, is there a team tougher than this team? Like everyone from 1 to 11 is really physical. So that is the challenge of playing blue collar U, correct?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's the physical piece, and then they can back that up with a ton of skilled guys who can make threes. So they can put up a lot of points in a hurry. Last year they got in a tight one with Friday Beers. The shots weren't falling, and then they ended up going inside to Perkins. And when he gets, again, if you let him get deep enough to the basket, you're going to have a big time problem on your hands. So, and then what I think Wes Clark even made that one. He's a big time scorer in big time moments. He loves it.
Yeah, so when we talk about physicality, Big Five, Philadelphia basketball, they should be able to rise to the challenge here and really step up. And we talked about these guys being an 8 seed, and that is just insane. So when you talk about guys like Maurice Watson is so underrated, just a fantastic guard. Ramon Galloway's been performing in the TBT for year after year after year. So this is a strong squad, and still curious how they got the 8 seed on this, but the one thing I think they're going to know is what they're getting with that UB team, and they have a physical brand of basketball. So I think they can bring it. I don't know if you have a different opinion, Hayner, but it's going to be a great matchup.
Well, I don't have a different opinion. I think it's a really tough matchup. And Matt, obviously looking at this, I mean, you've seen this team before, and you mentioned you're an hour near Philly. You're basically close there. So when your team makes the TBT finals in Philly, you'll have a short commute. But like being close to Philly, like what does Philly basketball in your mind embody?
Yeah, there's definitely a toughness and a swagger that comes with a Philly basketball player. They're super confident. They're really close knit. Like if you're a good basketball player in Philly, every other good basketball player in Philly will know you. So although these guys aren't necessarily alums of the same team, I'm sure they've known each other for a really long time and will have a lot of chemistry on the floor. So it's going to be a tough matchup for blue collar. And again, Philly guys bring a certain amount of grit onto the court that is tough for anybody to match.
What's interesting about Big Five last year too is I had the pleasure of watching. I'm from New York now, so I currently was I was last year at the Rucker Park Regional, which was a blast. And they were the one game that moved inside because there was a rainout, so they had to move their game against the expats inside, and they played at the Gaucho Sim. So even though they won one game at the Rucker Park Regional, it was on wood, not on concrete, which finds it pretty interesting. But they actually had a pretty tough matchup in that region, so they were pretty good. So would you say, Matt, this is probably, if not the best 8 seed, one of the best 8 seeds in TBT?
Yeah, 100%. I think that's a no-brainer. They're super tough, and again, like experience in this, we didn't realize it when we first got into it, but experience in this tournament is so important. So the fact that they've won a tournament game and are still an 8 seed is pretty shocking.
Yeah, I'm pretty floored. I mean, you wonder if they could have been moved. You wonder if there's something going on. And obviously, like when you look at these matchups, what they were trying, because let's be clear, Charge and I are very honest about this. This event is high-level basketball, 85%, WWE level entertainment, 15%. So they're looking for matchups, and this is just how the matchups work. There's really no way around it. So if they're going to this region, even though they're not maybe the 8th best team, they were going to slot into the seed. So it does another team a favor. There's no favor being done for blue collar U either. This is a very losable game for the defending champs right out the gate. One last question on this team, Matt, since you understand Philly, why is Drexel not in the Big Five? Why isn't it Big Six? Is there a historical reason? Do you know? I'm always confused by that.
It's a wonderful question. I have no idea why not.
Fair enough. I don't either.
Yeah.
I don't either. It's totally fine. Now, the Rhodey away as a 4 seed, 5 Commonwealth. These are both A10 alumni schools. They're both making their first team first appearances. Now, Matt, you coach a blended alumni team, so we call it, like not an alumni team, but a blended of a school regions, which means you're an alumni team, but not really. First-time alumni teams tend to struggle, Bleed Green being a notable exception last year. The North Texas alums won 2 games last year to go pretty deep in the tournament. So, like, what does a first-team alumni or even a first-time TBT team face as a challenge?
Yeah, honestly, I think logistically, there's a lot more things to plan than you realize. So when you're the GM and the head coach, which is a lot of people, it's hard to get your head wrapped around the game because there's so many things you're trying to take care of. So sometimes I think the game just like sneaks up on people in a lot of ways. So and if you have any issues with those logistics, it's going to affect your play. It's going to affect your guys, and they're not going to be happy playing. So there's just going to be issues. I think it's definitely a challenge, but depending upon who, I'm not sure who their GM is or who's running it, but if he has any experience who has talked to people, I think they'll be able to hit the ground running.
Yeah, and with the experience, I mean, that's just huge having Xavier Munford on their team. I don't know how many TBTs this guy's played in, but he's performed at an extreme high level in the TBT. You can see he continues to play at some of the highest levels overseas at a very, very high level. And we did our fantasy drafts yesterday, and some of these guys that follow some of these younger players a lot more than I do, they're pretty stoked for this Rhody Way team and think they're possible sleeper in this region. So I'm looking forward to seeing them. And like I said, some of these guys way smarter than me with these players, and they're going to come out ready to play. And it's one of those ones where you can make an argument that Big Five was somewhere else, but this is going to be just as tough of a matchup wherever you put them. And it's not an island, as Hainer calls out right here.
It's just not an island. It drives me nuts. It just drives me absolutely nuts as a Southerner. I had to learn that when I was like 30 years old. So actually, talk about these schools real quick, Rhode Island and Massachusetts. Would either of them qualify as nerd schools in your estimation, Matt?
Listen, I went to Amherst College, which is right next door to UMass, the Commonwealth, and everyone calls it the ZooMass because it's such a party school. And my wife grew up in Rhode Island, so Hainer, stop talking trash about Rhode Island, okay? and that was also a party school. So I think that no matter whether we win or lose, we booze is the mindset going into this game here.
I like how you're giving me crap for talking about Rhode Island. If I'm president, I will abolish Rhode Island. I promise that. I will make them no longer a state. Okay, so we got the Commonwealth, another first-time team. Now, what I love about this is an A10 matchup, which really did kind of put the cards in the deck for Big Five being an 8. There's no way to get this matchup. Like, we did a bracketology where we tried to do a true seeding and tried to give this as a potential second-round matchup. Correctly, probably for fan base, TBT just short-circuited that and gave it a 4 or 5, which makes some level of sense. What I find fascinating about Commonwealth, besides the fact that UMass is a great history, Marcus Camby, obviously under Calipari. But what I find fascinating is they are one of the teams in TBT, one of the first, in fact, to have an NIL collective. By the way, for our listeners, NIL in college sports means name, image, and likeness, where you're allowed as a player to be paid for endorsements. So this is the first time a collective NIL is actually helping work for a TBT team. So first of all, you're a college coach, Matt. So you have opinions about sort of NIL. How do you see NIL affecting college sports in the next couple of decades?
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways the rich are going to get richer. I think if you take a chance on a kid at a low major or mid major and he excels in his first couple seasons with you, I think that the blue bloods are going to go after him in the Power 5 conferences. So it's going to be tough for the smaller schools to make those big runs, but the trick is going to be how can you convince people to stick around for 4 years? Obviously, if they're going to the NBA or something and getting out early, that's another thing. But if you can kind of develop an NIL deal that like escalates in a way or rewards loyalty to this first school you go to, I think it's going to be a big advantage. So it'll be really interesting. There's so many schools now hiring people who all they're going to do is NIL stuff and figure out deals on their staff. So it's almost like having a general manager, like you're more of an MBA type setup.
All right. Yeah. So this Commonwealth team, like I said, driven by the Al, is going to, I think, continue to grow as the years go. A couple of things to note on their players. Katie Lillane is going to be out of TBT with an injury. So we make these about 2 weeks in advance. And so, unfortunately, the amount of transactions, whether it's injury or just they told me they're playing and don't show up, or they lie about who's showing up, it's hard to keep track of. But in this case, Lillane, the word is he got hurt, so that is there. And then the other kind of couple pieces that are missing here from a typical UMass team is Trey Davis. When YGC decided not to put in a team, I was hoping Trey Davis would circulate. He did not. And Raphael Putney, obviously one of their well-known guys, is with Heartfire. So it's I think a really good first knock at a UMass alumni team. They got still some really talented players that are going to show up and play hard. I think the support behind the scenes, just meeting the guys from the Mass Collective is impressive. So this is going to be a good experience their first time out of the gate, win or lose. I think it's going to set the table for a lot more UMass alumni coming back and just building better teams down the road as well.
Definitely. I think it's a pretty interesting concept. Now, also, Matt, you're familiar with some of the players on both these A10 squads, right? Because of your proximity to that region.
Yeah, for sure. Back we used to see these guys a lot when I was coaching and playing at Amherst College. They were just across town, so sometimes we try to organize pickup games. I remember playing against Chaz Williams for a little bit. I've watched Carl Pierre. I've paid attention to UMass for a while, so they're gonna be good.
This left half will be pretty interesting. Let's get to the right half and talking about your 3-seed matchup, your own nerd team, fresh off a couple wins last year against the new team, the Happy Valley Hoopers. So first of all, getting in this, fresh off the whole concept of books and basketball can coexist. I don't think it's a big stretch to think intellectual people can play basketball. It's a game of angles, a game of strategy. I think athleticism and academics mix great. So I think the nerd team is one of my favorite conceits of a TBT team. Plus that logo is straight fire. That's a great fucking logo. I love it. So first of all, how did this team come together as a concept? Refresh our memories from last year.
Yeah, honestly, Aaron Toomey and I, who we run it together, we were super bored. We're both college coaches. We were super bored during COVID. And we said, hey, maybe we can put together a little TBT team. So we started kind of doing some behind-the-scenes work and hitting all of our network. We both played at Amherst College and we're very familiar with that high academic world. We knew the guys in the Ivy League and the Patriot League, could hoop at a pretty high level. And so we started putting it together. Honestly, the first two big names we got, they're still playing for us, were Kyle Casey out of Harvard, who was one of the first really, really, really high-level Ivy League players in the early 2010s. And then Brandon Sherrod, who's back with us again from Yale, who is famous for when they out-rebounded Baylor. And the guy they show his press conference every single year during the NCAA tournament of, hey, how did they out-rebound you? They're an Ivy League school. And he answers, they jumped up when the ball hit the rim and they grabbed more of those than we did. And they play it every single year. It's just classic. And that was Brandon and his teammates. So those two guys came in, and honestly, once we got them, we had a little bit of cachet with the other Ivy League alums, and we started putting together a good roster.
So did you know those guys, or was it just random calls that we have this concept that's going to be really cool? So did you just cold call these guys and got them on board?
Yeah, we the new cold call, the cold DM on Instagram. Okay. We did a lot of cold DMing. We Aaron and I knew some of them or had met some of them, but I don't know if they even knew who we were. But they got back to us, and we started putting together a pretty talented roster.
Yeah, that's impressive. And then obviously we talked about that these things kind of age quickly. And so for good reason, Jalen Kendrick and Tyler Nelson will not be with the team this year. So best of luck to those two guys as they keep pursuing the opportunity in professional careers. But you have some nice backfill here. So you picked up Desi Washington from the Peacocks, and then there's another guy not listed here that you're really excited about. So why don't you talk a little bit about those two guys that are going to help their team in TBT 2023?
Yeah, well, first of all, we're still in talks with obviously Jalon and Tyler's agents and teams. So we're still in negotiations there. But Desi, he had a big time performance last year for Peacock Nation. He's a Jersey guy. I grew up in New Jersey. One of our other assistant coaches, Mo Faree, he knows Desi really well and connected us together. And then, we just added Tucker Richardson, who was the player of the year in the Patriot League at Colgate, has put together some big time performances against tough competition for Colgate. He was a defensive player of the year in the Patriot League a couple times as well. He's super impressive kid, 6'5", kind of do it all, can score it, can share it. So we're really excited to add him. It's just when you have a versatile guy like that, it just makes putting together lineups and how you can make adjustments a little bit simpler because you always know you have this big ball handling guard. So that's going to be a big get for us for sure.
Now, is there a style of play that people associate at my schools? I remember when I was a kid, I used to watch Princeton play. They always had all those back cuts and like they would run a flowing offense that flowed to nowhere for 30 seconds. So it was beautiful to watch them dance and go nowhere for the entire shot block. Is there a style of play that you're really trying to hone in on with the roster you have?
Yeah, I think we want to play a style where kind of everybody out there can do everything. Bigs that can shoot, guards that can post. We can score inside, we can score outside. That's a big piece for us. And yeah, to be honest, Hayner, Princeton basketball is really well known. A lot of NBA teams run those concepts, those concepts have kind of taken over a lot of high-level basketball over the years. So we definitely try to apply them, and we have applied them the last couple of years. And the lucky thing for us is a lot of the guys that we coach have run those concepts either overseas or when they were in college. So we try to take what they're good at and every year and kind of place them into those plays or concepts or principles.
Yeah, I remember when I was a kid, I used to watch, we all watched a lot of hoops, obviously, and I've always been a night owl. I've always been a bit of a vampire. And that was back when the Great Alaskan Shootout was still something people cared about. Now it's a third-tier tournament. I remember Princeton went and beat a bunch of Power 5 schools by running the same cuts, and it was like, all these guys. I mean, he had a guy who was like balding, guys who were clearly going to be accountants, and they were just working these SEC teams. And you're like, how are they doing this? They don't see the cuts. And you just saw them just run the same stuff and just work these guys. I always found that massively. It was one of the more I'd just be sitting there with a beer at 2 a.m. in Louisiana watching this going, this is beautiful stuff. Like just laughing my ass off. It was just some of the most beautiful stuff. Now, from a team that just won to a team that making their first run, and also, let's be honest, not the same academic caliber of school. That's for my friends who went to Penn State, which I have quite a few. It's a wonderful school if you like to drink in the middle of Pennsylvania. That is the Happy Valley Hoopers, the Penn State alums. Now, this is an interesting squad because Penn State's coming off a pretty good run. And what's funny is a couple of these guys, played pretty recently. So, this strikes me as a pretty young team. What's it like playing a team that doesn't have as much tape? Is this a harder team to scout?
Yeah, it's definitely a little tricky. They have a few guys, older guys who haven't played in a couple of years, so you're not going to find much on them, right? And then they have a mix of young guys that we can find a good amount of film on. So it's a little bit tricky because you're going to know half the roster very well, and half the roster you're kind of guessing over the last couple of years. But they're really talented. They got some great size. They got a ton of good guard play. And again, they have some young, I think adding the younger players that they have over the last couple of weeks, I think was important for their roster and has made them a big time challenge.
Yeah, you mentioned the young alumni teams. I always get burned on this, but I really do like this Penn State team this year. Sessoms has been, just fantastic in college, and playing recently. Miles Dredd, I believe he's their all-time 3-point leader. John, obviously, big body, 6'9", and he's gonna, most likely get a double Hayner. I hate you. Trying to do these shows with Hayner in the comments is brutal some days, but like you said, they got a lot of young young legs. Cohill's solid, and so there's something about this team that keeps drawing me to them. And I've just been burned way too many times, but I think this is one. It's a fantastic matchup when you look at a 3-6. We talked about the 1-8's fantastic, the 4-5 is fantastic. This 3-6 is going to be fantastic as well. But it's going to be a fight out there. I think obviously Nerd Team proved what they're all about, and even if they're two guys, we can't get them negotiated. Still a very deep team, and I can't wait to see this matchup.
It's funny too because the reality is that Charge can't multitask. You and I can look at that.
No, I'm horrible. I'm like way older than you. I could do one thing at a time. I could talk only, or I can look at the screen only. But
it's funny too because Charge, I've been doing this now for 4 years, and we always use the chat to communicate with each other, and mainly also just talk shit. So the best things in our podcast you'll never see. They're all just us yelling at each other. But the reality is, so looking at the squad, I mean, what's interesting to me about this is the first time alumni teams are always a little tough. So, I mean, like, having a school that's not as academically done, is that kind of a fun thing for your guys? Like, this is a Big Ten team. Let's take them out.
Yeah, I do think that our guys enjoy, almost prefer in a way to play teams out of big conferences, Power 5 conferences, ACC, Big Ten, Big East. I think that it gets them a little bit more hyped up and more excited. And, we had a couple calls about, how, we did have some success last year, but we need to keep that hunger and that underdog mentality. So I'm excited that we're playing a team from a big conference that for a lot of people are just going to assume they can beat up on the nerds,
Yeah, I'll say beat up on the nerds as if it were one of those movies. The guys with electric guitars and shit. I will say before we move on, real quick. We had John Harr. He conducted his interview from obviously an Ed Wood.
Oh, that was awesome.
Yeah, that was one where it's you couldn't even see his face. It was like a damn vampire. That might be the worst new logo in TBT. That is one of the more boring logos I think we have. So whoever designed that, step up your game. Okay, let's get to our last matchup here. We've got the number. Yeah, that logo is incredible. That's an incredible logo. I love that logo. Okay, so Team Boeheim's Army versus Team Gibson. What is there to say about Boeheim's Army? They have 22 wins this event. They're always incredible. They've started to kind of age out a little. Eric Devendorf will not be playing this year. He's playing in that alumni basketball league, and they're still deep. And actually, we make a lot of fun. And you kid those you like. We actually are big fans of Syracuse around here. My partner, as people listen to the show, is from Syracuse. She's a huge Orange fan, so she loves watching this team play. And this is actually much more of a Orange-based team than it has been in the past. But Charge, it's pretty interesting to see that they've actually added some Golden Eagles veterans. Can you talk a little bit about how much it helps to have Bikes and Jamil Wilson?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you can add champions to your roster, you can't go wrong. Great maturity, great ball players, and I think even with some of their recent losses with Battle not playing and Malachi Richardson, I think they're still 6 of 11 that are Syracuse alumni, so still very significant. But I really like what they did this year. Went back a little bit to their roots with the Syracuse guys and the people they grabbed off the waiver wire, getting guys from the Golden Eagles. It's just amazing. And then you start throwing in guys like Matt Morgan, and you got where's Grant Riller. I mean, you got guys that are just really, really high level players on this team, and I think this team's probably better than their championship team on paper. I think they're just going to be really deep. I mean, there's just solid top to bottom and very, very scary team this year.
So obviously, Matt, this is a really quality team. How how were you able to beat them last year? I mean, like, you guys were underdogs last year, you had a great squad, but I mean, even with a squad like this, you see it's similar quality they always had. Like, how were you able to beat these guys last year?
Yeah, I think the first thing is there's only one ball, right? So this team is super deep, but I'm not going to be surprised if some of those guys, who's their 9th, 10th guy, who's not these guys are playing every minute they can, or they're playing in big time leagues and putting up big time numbers, and now they got to play 12 minutes a night. That's something that's as a coach is really difficult to deal with. So that's number one. Last year for us, I think they had a little bit of the first night. A couple guys got a couple little bruises and this and that. So I think they were beat up a little bit from that India Rising team.
We lost Matt again. His internet will come back. While we wait for Matt to come back.
We just came out.
Oh, you're back, Matt. Go ahead.
My bad. In the ball early, so we kind of blitzed them to start the game. So unfortunately, I don't think if we're fortunate enough to play them in the second round that is going to happen, just because I'm sure they'll be pretty dialed up. So it'll be a little bit more of a physical game. But again, there's one ball, so you got to play together. That's the beauty of basketball, is if you can move it and play together, 5 guys can beat one every single time.
So it sounds like India Rising softened them up a little bit for you. So they set the table, helped you out. So
I love those guys, man. We hung out with those guys in the hotel a few times. So I big thanks to India Rising for sure.
Yeah, no, we had them on the podcast earlier in the season, and just a fun team. So we were talking about them on our last podcast. They're going to be out in what were we talking about? Dayton, I guess. See, that's my memory. But obviously, the story here is who they're going to play in. And this particular region is just insane. So you get a number 7, like Team Gibson. It's a new, non-alumni team. But they, once again, are deep and have a lot of guys who can play some ball. Elgin Cook, we talked about some of that pedigree over there with Marquette Golden Eagles that have played so well here. I think some of the wild card is going to be like Devin Funchess. Can this guy actually play ball or not, or is it just going to be a sideshow? I think that remains to be seen on that. Antoine Mason, I've always been a fan of his, kind of underrated. So these guys are going to come out and they're going to play tough. I still think they're just going to get overwhelmed by the depth and the talent of Boeheim's. But once again, for a 7 team, this is probably still one of the better 7 teams that we have out there.
Now, obviously, you're a big fan of Vander Blue, too. So, what about his game really attracts you as a fan?
No. I have no idea where you got that from, but I for some reason, I've just never been a Vander Blue fan. Nothing against the guy personally, but just being a G League guy. He spent, I think, 8,000 years in the G League, and so I got to see him playing a lot in the G. But he, getting up there in the age, but I'm sure he'll still contribute and do a nice job for Team Gibson. So as long as my guys don't need to play against him, I'm fine with them.
Yeah. Now, Matt, obviously his team is named or takes their ethos from Taj Gibson, a well-respected NBA veteran. Do you think when they were trying to recruit this team under his banner, they tried to get some of his toughness and some of his ethos of being a hard-nosed lunch pail kind of player?
Yeah, no, it looks like it from the outside looking in for sure. Again, I think putting together these teams is really tough. Having an NBA name to make the calls will probably make it a little bit easier. But I'm sure they were looking for some real toughness, some real grit for their roster. And I think they did a good job. I'm interested to see what Funchess is like, coming out of the NFL. But who knows? We'll see.
We'll see. Maybe he's got some of that sort of vibe where you've got the what's his name? Just like the guy from Marshall who could play. Why am I blanking on the wide receiver's name? Why am I blanking? Randy Moss.
Randy Moss, yeah.
Yeah. Maybe he's got some of that Randy Moss in him. Okay, we're done with the sort of team. Well, so let's get to the picks. So let's see who we have win these games. Matt, let's see how mad we're going to make you. Oh, Charge pissed you off from go. Unfortunately, we're both having. We don't think he can pull it off twice again. Not because the nerd team isn't good, just because we think Boeheim's really good. Now, however, saying that, you'll notice we didn't pick you last year either, and you see what fucking happened.
That's true. Listen, I love a little controversy here. I love being the underdog. I would hate if I came in here and you guys picked us to win the championship. So this is perfect. This is why I'm here. I appreciate you guys putting us down. I'm going to show all the boys this. This is going to be fantastic locker room material.
And by the way, I do a really bad job of remembering there are people listed and don't just watch. So we had we both picked Blue Collar U in the 1-8. We both picked Commonwealth in the 3-6. I picked Nerd in the 3-6. Charge picked Happy Valley in the 3-6. We both picked Boeheim's in the 2-7. And we both picked Boeheim to regain their perch atop the region and knock off the defending champs Blue Collar in the final. Charge, what was the hardest pick of these?
The hardest pick. Well, first of all, I'm switching to Roadie Way just based on all the transactions recently. Lillane not being there, I'm definitely taking Roadie Way in my final bracket, which I guess games are coming up quick, so I should probably work on that. But yeah, obviously the Penn State nerd team was the toughest pick, and I do kind of tend to pick against some of our guests that come on. But, yeah, it's just something about that game. I just got this vibe about the young guys on Happy Valley. So, but their team's proven themselves last year, taking out Boeheim. So you call me crazy, but that's why we play the games. We'll see if the young Bucks can get it done.
Yeah, whenever you pick a team like Penn State with their large winning tradition at basketball, you've got to. Let me see how many times they have made the last time they made the Elite Final Four is 1954. So whenever you can pick a team that hasn't made the Elite Eight since Eisenhower was president, you've got to go that direction. You just got to do it. Yeah. So Matt, feel free to screenshot this because we're rooting for you, but feel free to tell the host we're just complete jackasses. Charge, wait till we tape the Louisville picks. You're going to hate my picks. You're going to think I was literally just.
I mean, that's the thing. This particular region, I mean, we could just tick off a bunch of people because I mean, we're not even talking about the fact that we're discounting Blue Collar U once again. We're focused on this nerd game, but I mean, Boeheim's just looks so good and. Every year, we just don't think Blue Collar's going to have enough in the tank, and they just, like I said, one loss in 2 years. So we're not very smart either. So, but
we're not nerds. We're not nerds.
This is an amazing. This has kind of been my favorite region so far. So we've done 5 out of the 8 deep diving, and this one by far I think is the most talented top to bottom when you look at a 1 through 8. So from a pure game standpoint, this is the one I can't wait to watch.
So, Matt, a salutation as a closeout here. Any final thoughts on how dumb we are, how much fun it is to play in Syracuse? Like, where do you want to end the conversation? What are you thinking?
Yeah, no, well, first off, I just appreciate you guys having us on, being able to talk about the nerds here. But we're excited to get back to Syracuse. I think you guys are dead on it. It's the toughest region we've seen in our 3 years. I think it might be the toughest region. In the entire tournament this year. So it's going to be great. It's going to be fun. It's going to be entertaining. And listen, in order to beat the best, in order to be the best, you got to beat the best. So you're going to see them at some point. So let's do it on night 1 with Happy Valley and then keep it going hopefully against Cuse the next day.
How very Ric Flair of you. I love that. Matt Goldsmith, head coach and GM of the Nerd Team, joining Charge and Hayner, doing our Syracuse TBT regional preview. And we are, as always, signing off.
Hope you enjoyed listening to Zoom the TBT with Charge and Hayner. Subscribe to YouTube, follow on Twitter, and give us your money.